Hello computer longevity lifestyle designers, this is Gavin here with secretsoflongevity.com. This might be one of my shortest videos in the IQ series, so there won't be too many links below, but I will link to 2 or 3 articles here to back up the points I'm bringing up. And it is a very simple point I want to make in this video, just to talk about politics and I guess monetary outlook, or your view of the world and how it works, and how that's reflective of average IQ. If there's groups that have a higher IQ that hold these views, that might be an incentive to look at these views, as opposed to me trying to say that everyone that has this view has a higher IQ than others. I'm not trying to say these people are right because they have a high IQ. I'm saying high IQ people are drawn to these ideas, so it's worth investigating and perhaps challenging yourself if you don't happen to hold these ideas. If there's a larger group of people of a higher IQ that are drawn to these ideas, then there's something there as compared to the average sort of bipartisan politics you might understand or be most familiar with. If there's a larger group of people of a higher IQ that are drawn to these ideas, then there's something there as compared to the average sort of bipartisan politics you might understand or be most familiar with. So essentially what this is the idea of right versus left political ideologies, and what does that indicate about IQ? So intelligence quotient. I've done a couple other videos about this topic. I'll link to both of them below. The one on heritability of IQ, as well as IQ and what it says for longevity. And with political ideology, there's a common held belief or understanding. It's promoted quite a bit in mainstream media sources, at least that's what I've seen and understood over the years, that left-leaning ideologies are on average of a higher IQ in terms of the type of people that are drawn to it. And you know, those conservatives, there's just backwater, backwoods, agricultural types that probably didn't go to post-secondary education, etc., etc. It's a bit of a put down the way the left kind of talks about it in that way. But I came across this article not too long ago, and I kind of had an inkling about this idea, you know, because I've always had a problem with the black versus white, right versus left in terms of politics. And you can't divide up all these different issues, you know. Maybe the conservatives had some good ideas that are mixed in with those bad social ideas. So link number 3 below is the article I'm referring to here. And there's some studies from 2010, 2009 that show that, yes, there's a difference between 5 or more IQ points. So mid-90s for the conservatives and higher than 100 average IQ for liberals. But when you actually look at how these sociological studies were done, and they were right versus left, they were often really small surveys, you know, 6 questions, 3 questions that would put you into the liberal camp, 3 that would put you into the conservative camp, if depending on how you answered them. And they're mostly about social issues. So, you know, gay marriage, gun rights, abortion, banning offensive language, taxing the rich would be one of the questions on there that is really the only one that had anything to do with economics. So that's not a social issue question, but that's how they decided who answering this survey, and then the following IQ test that was associated with their survey. That's how they determined who was liberal, who was conservative. So if most of the questions determining this are social issues, then all you can say is that people who are more open to other people doing what it is they want with their life are of a higher IQ. It has nothing to do with what one's political leanings are or who you vote for. Furthermore, the fact that this was done on college campuses with college students, there tends to be a more socially open, whether it's peer pressure, whether it's just the knowledge that comes with learning about and empathizing with people in other groups, which is what you would experience in college. That totally makes sense. And I'd agree that those are intelligent things to embrace, you know, allowing and accepting of other people and not expecting government to impose itself on people's personal lives. But later, as was found in this article, when you switch that and have all the questions pertaining to just economic, business, and regulatory type questions in terms of determining what groups these people would fall under, right versus left, it actually pushed all the intelligent people over to the open side once again. So then all of a sudden all the high IQ people appear to be conservative. So if you take this little survey and determine this, what you're getting is the high IQ people, in both cases, are the ones that are open to people being liberal in the bedroom and not trying to impose yourself on the bedroom and the personal lives. And then with the other example, we see high IQ people tend to be open to not imposing on other people's business and voluntary exchange. So we obviously need something that's a little bit different from the left-right paradigm. What group, politically speaking, is open to you doing what you want in your bedroom and home and doing what you want in your business or working for someone else in a business? Well, that happens to be libertarians, or a libertarian ideology, one with minimal government oversight, removing regulation, removing restrictions, legalizing drugs, etc. So higher IQ people are just more prone to be allowing of other people to do what they want and taking your own life in your own hands and doing what you want with your life, because you also don't want people imposing on you. So that seems pretty basic, but there are people out there that think you should be imposed upon, whether it's your business or your private life. So all in all, it's not a massive difference in IQ. It could range from 2 to 5 points, if not a little bit more, in terms of what views you hold there. But that's significant in that you think about what people are drawn to and the reasons for being drawn to it. If you have better reasoning skills, and the name of the magazine article that this is from, or online magazine article, is reason.com. It's a great website if you haven't read articles from there before, but they have the links to the studies, and I'd highly recommend checking it out below. And to give another example, it's a large area, but a microcosm in terms of the global, because we don't have enough data on IQ of different countries at different times in history. But within Europe, there's actually some really good data, and there's enough difference between the different political powers in Europe in terms of whether they're right-leaning or left-leaning, economically speaking, that we can see the results of that. Now, some people might try to argue the chicken or egg thing here. They would say, well, you're trying to say, and we're going to look at the examples in a sec, but the high IQ countries tend to be the most economically free, or what would often be labeled as right-leaning. So is high IQ a product of a right-leaning country, or does high IQ lead to right-leaning politics that would be in place? And we actually covered this in previous video. It's the link number 1 below. It's the heritability of IQ. You know, it could be between 60 and 80% seems to be the average consensus between people studying this, psychologists and whatnot. So it is mostly heritable. So high IQ regions tend to be more economically free, and they lean that way when it comes to politics. And what you also see from this is the lower IQ regions of Europe, both in the past and more recently, have had more socialist, more dependent type political mindsets. So this, trying to look for handouts. So that's the 4th link below, the final link. And if we were just look at the data from 1979, because there's data from a number of different years, and some of the years were also, the data was from younger groups. They do change the way an IQ test is done if it's a younger group that's being tested. But just for the sake of the best understanding, in 1979, most of the countries that were looked at were adult groups that were studied for IQ. And these are mostly developed countries. There's actually a couple outside of Europe in there as well. So I went through and looked at all the countries with an IQ at 100 or above, and they were as follows: Austria, West Germany, because this was before the fall of the Berlin Wall, and East Germany was actually below 100, and if you know anything about East Germany and the history, definitely not a right-leaning country. Switzerland, Italy, and that's probably the only anomaly there. There could be a number of reasons for that. Netherlands was very high. Portugal, Poland, Sweden, and New Zealand. And I just threw New Zealand in there because the data was there. And also, it was more of an estimate because they don't have the exact thing for 1979, but they have the IQ earlier and then later, and you can kind of guess if it's rising around 1979, it would have been well over 100. I guess Portugal would also be a more left-leaning country, so that's an anomaly along with Italy. But the others are all well above 100. And if you look at all the other countries in that chart, that's in link number 4 below, you can see that they fall below 100 in the mid-90s, in some cases 80s, with countries like Greece. Greece being a very socialist country in the past, and leading up today, big welfare state. And yeah, I just find that quite interesting that this is glaringly obvious in the data when you look at IQ. And one thing people might try to mention is Sweden's on there, and they have a high IQ, and they're also, at least people perceive them to be very socialist, but there's very select aspects of Swedish government and Swedish culture that is socialist. Other parts are very right-leaning in terms of their corporate tax rate and whatnot. And also you have to think about how these other three Scandinavian countries are below 100 in that 1979 survey. So again, with the averages here, we see the Austria, West Germany, Switzerland, that whole culture, which is one of high production, very organized, very high IQ, they seem to be at the top of the list. Netherlands there as well. And it just goes to show that intelligence can lead to more wealth and leads to a sounder, freer economic outlook and cultural practices. So let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. Like, favorite, and share the video if you feel so inclined. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.